and identified who was blocking it, etc. So there are certain key people, especially in Congress, that we've identified as kind of the child welfare heroes. Chuck Grassley is one of the best. He's like the most awesome. He totally understands that foster care is a dinosaur and we need to redo it. He doesn't have enough support behind him. I truly believe that Grassley was the one who got Trump to sign the executive order on June the 24th of last year regarding, focusing on reunifying families.
Cynthia Becker, and I'm here with attorney Vince Davis and Connie Reguly from Tennessee. Connie, before we took a break, you were explaining about the federal legislation proposed by Karen Bass regarding COVID. Can you explain that a little bit more for us? Because I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, so, I've been to Washington, D.C. several times since about 2015. I started going up there, and part of going up there, we've got 495 Congress people, and we've got 100 senators. And one of the main things that you need to do when you have an issue that you want to focus on is kind of find out who are the people that are keying in on those issues. Because when you're in D.C., with new laws, like we were up there when we got the Families First Services and Prevention and Services Act passed in 2018, we had worked on that, and we'd been pounding the pavement up there on that for about a year, and identified who was blocking it, et cetera. So there are certain key people, especially in Congress, that we've identified as kind of the child welfare heroes. Chuck Grassley is one of the best. He's like the most awesome. He totally understands that foster care is a dinosaur and we need to redo it. He doesn't have enough support behind him. I truly believe that Grassley was the one who got Trump to sign the executive order on June the 24th of last year regarding, focusing on reunifying families. And so Diane Bass is one out of California who has kind of the child welfare issue on her radar. And I don't want to misstate it. I know she had a couple pieces of child welfare legislation, and I'm pretty sure she's the one who did put out the legislation to say that during the COVID pandemic that they should be suspending the termination of parental rights hearings, especially because, basically the children were in foster care too long, like that, or because of unable to have visitation and reunify with the children. So I can't tell you whether it passed or not, because if you pay any attention to Washington, D.C., a lot of things really got stuck in just legislation up there. It really moves like a turtle, but you just have to keep pounding on it. But I know that she has an interest in child welfare. So people who in California, I've been in front of Devin Nunes several times. So you have a good conservative and you have a good liberal out there who have an interest in child welfare. So people need to call Congress, and they need to say, and, they'll kind of back off and they'll say something about the state and they'll say something about litigation. We can't interfere with litigation. But if they can pick the issue or the policy and focus in on the policy, and I'll tell you, for instance, and the relative placement is huge because that's a portion of the Family First Act is kinship placement. The other thing that's kind of a hot topic that really started developing a couple years ago is parents and families with disabilities, whether it's the child with a disability or whether it's the parent with a disability. Because out of Massachusetts back in 2015, they came out with a case, and I know Vincent was talking about reporting to the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington. Those two departments actually went into Massachusetts in 2014, and they identified a mom that had some mental health disabilities, and she could not take care of a child on her own. It's called the Sarah Gordon case. But the grandmother had stepped up and said, I can help her. And instead of allowing the grandmother to help the mother, they were going to terminate parental rights and put the child up for adoption. Well, and I don't know how they did it, but HHS, Health and Human Services, and the DOJ, Civil Rights Division, came in, did an investigation, wrote a whole report, and said that it was a violation of civil rights to not make the reasonable accommodation of a relative placement in that circumstance. So we have to, and after that occurred, I asked the entire package for them on the relative issue. I did not get the result that I want because, unfortunately, the other thing in D.C. is they changed jobs a lot. I had a worker at the Department of Justice who was working on it, and he changed jobs on me. So I was not able to get the follow through. But you just have to try everything you can until we can start cracking this system.
Hey, Connie, let me ask you a question. You know, you mentioned the Gordon case out of Massachusetts. Generally, in those cases, DHHS and or the Justice Department Civil Rights Division issue a long letter with respect to their decision. Do you have a copy of that?
I do. You can actually probably still Google it. If you Google the Sarah Gordon Massachusetts American Disabilities Act or ADA. If you can't, I will go look for it and, try to get it to you too. I want to make sure I get your email address. But you can still pretty Google it. This opinion letter. And then about 6 months later, they actually came out with a secondary, what they call the technical assistance letter that talked about the ADA and child welfare cases. So they have both of those out there. I'll be happy to get those to you. I think Cindy, text me your email address, but you can probably find those with the Google as for anybody who's listening.
Very good, very good. Let's take another quick call. Lewis